Well, first, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Phyllis Richman. What do you want to know about me?
You can say whatever you want. How long have you had
I've
Parkinson's?
had Parkinson's for 16 years, actually 17 by now. And before that, I was restaurant critic for the Washington Post. I retired when I got Parkinson's.
You had one of the most desirable jobs in Washington. Was it hard to give it up?
No, not at all. I was ready to give it up, but it was great while I had it.
Adam once told me he thought the Supreme Court justice was the best job in Washington.
Oh, no, you got to work hard for that one.
Exactly. Well, how would you distinguish Parkinson's from other diseases? Not from a technical perspective, but from a patient's perspective. What's different about Parkinson's?
For one thing, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable from day to day as well as from week to week or month to month. It can get better as well as worse over a short period. So it's always presents you with surprises.
One other difference that occurs to me is that there's a lot of room for patient discretion
Oh, yes.
in terms of exercise or other activities that you might regard as therapeutic.
Yes, I find that exercise really makes a difference. Unfortunately, because I haven't been in the path of much exercise lately, and I felt the effects of it. But it is good to have, if you have to have a disease, to have one that you feel you can have some control over. You can help direct it in some way or another.
Do you feel that, as far as symptoms are concerned, not only are the symptoms unpredictable, but they vary from patient to patient?
Right, right. So one person's Parkinson's is not another person's.
What about surgery? You had surgery.
I did have DBS about 3 years
That's
ago.
deep brain stimulation.
Deep brain stimulation about 3.5 years ago. And it did what I wanted it to do. I was getting dyskinesias and I couldn't stand them. And it got rid of the dyskinesias. Unfortunately, they're beginning to come back 3 years later. And I don't know what I'll do about that, but maybe I'm more used to them now. I don't know.
What my neurologist keeps telling me is all these therapies are great, but they're just dealing with the symptoms, not with the underlying disease.
Exactly.
That seems to be consistent with your experience.
Yes, well, for a while I began to think that the disease was modifying or disappearing. My symptoms became much more benign. And then it was like they waited and then got a good head of steam and crashed back.
I'm laughing, but
Yeah, right. That's what you have to do when you have Parkinson's.
Yeah.
You have to learn to laugh at
I
anything.
think a sense of humor is one of the traits that helps. Another one is persistence. What would you say about persistence?
I find that anytime I have a goal with Parkinson's to get rid of this or make that easier or whatever, that I usually have to try a little harder than I anticipated. But it's that trying extra hard that really makes a difference. So I find that if you give up too easily, it takes its effects more strongly.
Are there things, features of Parkinson's that you wish you'd known more about when you were first diagnosed? You know now, but you didn't know it then.
I didn't know anything. My grandmother had Parkinson's, and all I knew was her grandchildren had told kind of jokes on her, and we would all show our trembling hands. We didn't know what that meant, but we knew that Grandma had it, and so I got a much different view of it this time around.
Is it clear to you that you have it because your grandmother had it?
No, I think probably not, because nobody in the intervening generation had it.
And how about in your generation? Are you the only one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I have a second cousin who has it. He had young onset Parkinson's, but he and I are the only ones.
Neurologists say that it's a combination of genetic and environmental causes. I say that's because they don't know what causes it, so they
Right.
use a lot of fancy words, but they really don't.
I read a lot that suggests that this might grow to be an important anti-Parkinson medication, or that might help a lot. But none of them are based on anything that I consider hard evidence.
You tried hypnosis,
Yes,
and with what result?
none. I mean, I figured it couldn't hurt me, and it didn't hurt me, but it didn't do me any good. And I've tried acupuncture. I've tried just about anything. I've tried various meditations.
Tai Chi, have you tried that?
Yes.
How did that work?
Well, I wasn't a good subject for Tai Chi because I couldn't stand very well. So I did it sitting down, and I don't think you can get nearly the effect. But I could see where it would help a lot with balance, but it just didn't help me very much.
Some people say massage works.
Massage works for anything.
So what would you say has worked? You said exercise.
Exercise has worked. I think relaxation helps a lot. I think when I'm tense, I can just, feel the Parkinson's coming
Yes.
on.
Well, you said that the surgery worked for a while in eliminating the dyskinesias.
Yeah, I think the surgery worked very well for 3.5 years, and that's a lot of time, I think. I'm not sure it worked for everything, but it worked for the most important thing for me.
Do you have any significant symptoms other than movement symptoms? In other words, I'm asking about non-movement symptoms.
Yeah, I have some cognitive symptoms. I used to be very good at math, just answering things off the top of my head. And I'm not so good anymore. I have to struggle to connect the problem with the solution. And my speech has been affected. I guess my communication skills, my executive functioning. I used to do no less than 3 or 4 things at a time, and now it's a struggle to follow through on one thing.
Some people complain they lose their sense of taste or smell, which would be a problem for
Right. Well, fortunately,
restaurant food.
I think that by now my taste has declined some, but fortunately, for most of the time, I've had pretty steady sense of taste, maybe somewhat muted, but not enough that anybody else would notice a difference. So yes, I was definitely worried about that.
What about reading? Do you read?
Oh, that's true. That's a problem. First of all, my eyes don't. I can't read small type anymore. But also, I have a lot of trouble focusing in the morning. So until noon, it's just hopeless for me to try to read.
Do you read about Parkinson's?
Well, I did for years, and then I decided to give it up.
Apparently, the neurologists seem to be pretty unanimous in saying that the patients that read about it and learn about it do better than those that don't. They're not suggesting that merely reading about it, I think, helps, but if you read about it, you may do something about it.
Exactly, yes. It's a very complex disease, and I think that anything you do that is either benign or could in some way help is likely to help. Not enough to satisfy you, perhaps, but if there's reading to be read, why not read it?
Right. How would you say your participation in a support group has helped you deal with Parkinson's?
That's been an enormous help. When I first joined, I had no idea how far I could go in learning about Parkinson's. And I read what I could find easily on the internet, and it was just an enormous amount of material. This helped me to organize it, to see patterns, and most important, it gave me friends who have like problems. I would say that 2 of my best friends now are people who I met in the group. And just gave me a sense of confidence and ability to, in some way, take charge. And also let me see how people evolved and how the disease progressed among people that I knew well. And so I could have more insight into what was happening to them.
I like the way you put it, gave you an opportunity to take charge. I think that's a very good trait for people who have Parkinson's.
Well, um, I wonder how much my personality played into my handling of the disease. I think probably a good bit. That I tend to be optimistic, and I tend to decide that I can do what I can do to push myself. And I think that I did accomplish some things. I think that my disease progress has been slower than other people I've known. And I think that part of that was due to my my own aggressiveness, assertiveness.
We could call that aggressiveness.
If you're a woman, it's aggressiveness. If you're a man, it's
Yes.
assertiveness.
Restaurant critic is a writer as well as a taster. How has Parkinson's affected your ability to write?
I think that it has affected my writing because I'm not as facile as I was. It doesn't flow as quickly. And the same thing that I suppose that makes me struggle with doing two things at a time, makes me struggle with doing one thing at a time. I'm tired. I mean, that's the worst thing about Parkinson's, which I haven't even mentioned. That is, it's a fatigue like none that I knew before. It's an utter fatigue, and I can't imagine being able to write then. So it doesn't give me much time for writing. Also, being a restaurant critic involves certain motor skills. I began to consider retiring from my job when I realized I couldn't use chopsticks anymore. So
When you first said that, I thought that was a joke.
no, it takes a lot of
It does.
finger control to use chopsticks, and also I can't I just can't be as polite at the table. I can't finish a meal without at some point using my hands to help my fork.
I think we have what we need.
Good.
Phyllis, thank you so much.
Well, this was fun.